I had to make the timing. Oh, there we are. We are live. And I'm going to check something on here because... Hello, you guys. Hello. Everybody say hey as you're coming in. Just give me a moment. I am checking something. But again, say hey as you're coming in. Let me know where you are coming from. How are you doing, you guys? I know we're like going through all this stuff right now. So check in. Let us know how you're doing. And how is quarantine treating you guys? All right, cool. I'm looking at this and I'm making sure. All right, so you guys, I know that I said I was going to be on a different streaming platform, and we did try. But I've got some bugs to work out, so that's going to be my thing. I'm switching from StreamYard to Restream, but it's a little bit more technical, you guys. So, yay! And Becky says, hello.
Hello, Becky.
So I'm so excited, you guys. But I'm so excited to have my guest on. We're going to do StreamYard for one more night. Y'all say a prayer for me. Hopefully by Thursday, I will be coming to you guys from Restream. But I will know tomorrow, make or break on this one. So without further ado, and before I go into this again, you guys say hey as you're coming in. Let us know where you're coming from. If you are just so excited to be here, give us a like, drop lots of hearts, and share this episode so I can continue spreading these amazing stories and spotlighting these awesome women. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to drop into my epic intro. I'm going to introduce my awesome guest, and we are going to get started, you guys. So hello and welcome to the TUF Woman Table, episode 65. And for anybody who's looking at my recent episodes, I had an episode 61 twice. So don't pay attention to that. All right. So, this is the table where I invite some super badass tough women to take a seat, join in on the conversation, and share their amazing stories. At TUF Woman, I believe that all women have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered to go out and get whatever success looks like to them. I share this belief by championing tough women who have walked through the fire, felt the fear, faced adversity, and kept pushing through it all. Women who now live the life they want is the woman they were created to be, and women who own their stories so other women can embrace and own theirs as well. Because as we all know, you guys, as we all know, and as I say every single time, when you give yourself permission to own and share your story, you give someone else the same permission. That makes me
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Oh, and Becky says she is in Ohio and she is an essential employee. Yes.
Good. Somebody's working.
I know, right? I am an essential employee as well. I am at Sam's, and someone said to me, like, you're still working? I said, listen, if you hear me tell you that Sam's closed down, then we all need to be afraid, okay? If Sam's is closing, I said, because the Walton family's going to be here till the apocalypse comes. So that's regardless. So you guys, I would love to introduce my guest, Christine Alexander. The blue collar female. So Christine, if you will tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what is blue collar female, and what it is that you are doing at the moment.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Christine Alexander, she said, the blue collar female. So I'm a 53-year-old survivor of abandonment and rejection. And so my story started when I was 25 years old and I had my son die at birth. And most would call it unexpectedly, but not me. I knew for the whole 9 months I was carrying him that he was going to die. And I shared it with therapists, I shared it with my husband, I shared it with friends, and everybody dismissed it. And when he died, it got me to a crossroads in my life that obviously forever changed me, but what really changed was the decision I made to get healthy. And I had no idea. I was on the pursuit of happiness. I had no idea what happiness even was. Giving a little history of my background is I've struggled with low self-esteem and self-worth all of my life. It's still part of me, even after 53 years. And when my son died, it was like filing cabinets that flew open and files just flew out like crazy, right? And I went on for about a year really spiraling in my grief, and nobody really understood why. And my uncle, who had lost a child at birth, said to my grandmother, something's not right with Christine. And I was having a nervous breakdown about the time of his 1-year birthday, not understanding any of it. And I went to, and backing up, sorry. So I made a crossroads decision that I have 2 ways to go. I'm a Winona fan. And back in in 92, when my son was born, that was her height of her career, right? So she had a song that says you go 2 ways up. You can go, when you hit rock bottom, you can go 2 ways, you can go straight up or sideways. And that song resonated to me. And I thought to myself, I have 3 choices. I could either kill myself because this pain was so horrific. If I cry, it's menopause. Okay. So just know ahead of time. I just let it happen. And then I could continue to live in this really, really unhappy place that was tormenting me. And I never understood what was plaguing me. And then, or I could find happiness. And at the time I was married to my high school sweetheart. We'd been together for 7 years before we got married and decided to have a family right away. And bless his heart, he's a very conservative person by nature. And so he did everything he could to support me. But at the end of the day, it was me that had to do the work. And so I started seeking help that after my uncle had approached my grandmother and said, something's not right. Her grief is really off. So, you know, I tried several things. I was raised Catholic. Well, I should say I was baptized Catholic. Never went to a Catholic church that I can remember other than maybe my christening. But I decided to go back to the Catholic church to kind of get some answers. Why me, right? And the father said to me when I went, well, God's free will. Now, I don't want to get religious here because that's not the point of my story, but it really opened up a can of what the hell does that mean? It was like, I don't know what that is. And so I went on this journey and I got through all the catechism and I got my confirmation. I even renewed my wedding vows because the church made my husband and I do that. We baptized both my children Catholic. But I didn't stick with it because after I had done some further soul searching and healing, I sought out a therapist, a psychologist who has written books on stress management. But I started to go to a girlfriend I went to high school with who lost her child with SIDS at 2 months old. And she got into a lot of, I would call hokey pokey stuff to people who are not into that, where she was doing meditations and but they do psychic readings, and you know, she was just doing all this stuff. So you know, I was trying all realms of everything. And one of the things she had me do was she had me look at my mind, and that's when we started. I said, "Well, I see a filing cabinet. It's kind of." She goes, "Yeah, I do too." And I'm like, "Whatever, you can't see that." But it led me to going to a hypnosis that she had warned me about. And during that time, I'm laying there and all I could want was to see my son again. That's all any parent who loses a child or a loved one, anybody, you want to see them again. So I was sitting in the chair waiting for the hypnosis to start. And I'm thinking, I'm in control here. I'm really in control here. And I'm going to see my son. And she says, okay, I want you to lay there. And she, you know, you're totally conscious. I don't know if anybody's ever been hypnotized before. It's a pretty interesting thing to go through. I found it really refreshing. It obviously opened up a lot for me. And she says, I want you to sit there and I want you to envision around you tall grass. You're in a meadow and there's a tall grass all around you. And I want you to wait a minute and I want you to sit there calmly and somebody's going to walk through the grass and I want you to tell me who it is. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be my son. You know, I'm going to see my son and all those things that you tell yourself. And it was my dad. And I remember saying to her, it's my dad, like completely shocked. And that's when we realized that losing my son, clearly, it went into the same filing cabinet as losing my dad. But children are taught to be resilient. Kids can get through this, right? And they just, as my family was trying to survive their own life, I was just kind of caught in the mix. Now, in the meantime, I had a mother, she's passed away, but she had her own problems. So moving forward, what I've been working on and discovering is how significant the abandonment of my father and having rejection from my mother because of her mental illness and emotional illness, how that impacted me. And I started out on this journey of self-healing. I've been on it for 28 years, and I'm honest with everybody. It's a journey that I will probably be on, like, for the rest of my life, because I spent the first, and we talk about acts. Let's back up a little bit. When we talk about the acts, I'm going to talk about I go by 25-year increments in my life because there's significance in that. And that is when I was 25, my son died. And at 50, my mother passed away. And so it was really poignant to me that some big things happen around every 25 years cycles for me. And I really found myself when I was turning 50 that I wanted to go into my third act, which is now 50 to 75 in my life, to recover, not to recover, to thrive from the recovery, right? To go through this. So the first 25 years of my life, I was a kid that was lost, 100% lost. I wanted to be everybody's friend. I used my insecurities and low self-esteem was presented by being over-friendly. I recently, in the last 3 or 5 years, learned about codependency. So this has been an unfolding process. And so I had several things that I needed to work on in those 25 years between my son dying and me turning 50. In the meantime, life happens, right? So I have 2 more kids. My husband finally does what he needs to do to take care of himself, and he leaves me. And so I'm a single mom when my daughter's 4. So men leave again, right? On top of that, he left with his heart attached to a girlfriend of mine. So they hid that relationship for about 9 months. They were having it, which I later found out because I thought I was crazy. They were gaslighting me. I had no idea even what that word meant until recently, but I was able to make sense that this isn't just me being crazy. Something's not right here. So I had to figure out that. I had to figure out what it felt like to be betrayed by a friend. I mean, these are people we spent holidays and birthdays and vacations with, and they became close. And so I spent the last 25 years, because when you go through life, and I'm still figuring out, when you go through life, you're it's not a straight road. Oh, I'm going to get well, and I'm just going to keep going. It's not like that. You get bumps in the road. You've got life happening. All of our intention. And I go back to that. My intentions were always to get well. No matter what was going on in my life around me, I was working extremely hard at the end game. And the end game was happiness. But I didn't know what happiness was, right? So adding all these insecurities I have, trying to be everybody's friend, codependent in every relationship I ever had. Like literally, I'm the light of the party. I have a great personality, but that's great as long as I'm doing 200% of the work to be in a relationship, right? And so anyways, I spent the 25 years going through my divorce, raising my daughters. I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old daughter. And I'm remarried to my husband now, and we've been together for 15 years. And I have a stepson that's 31. But in that process, I also started my business, and my husband when I met him, had just started his business. And he said, "Oh, it must be nice being a single mom in that big house dating a contractor." And I said, "Yeah, well, it must be nice to be a single contractor dating a bookkeeper. The rest is history. I still got a toilet that needs to be installed in our house." So that's just kind of an overview of the last 25 years and so forth. But my mother had passed away at the age of 50. She had what they call the polypharmacy, which is part of her mental and emotional illness. And there's a twist to this story that I think is really cool. And I hope I can convey perseverance, if anything, in this, because you do get your answers. And if you don't get them from somebody else, you find them within. And that's truly what I've been doing. And so there was a lot of forgiveness that needed to happen in my process of figuring out who I was. I first had to find my self-worth. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, that is the key to happiness. I can't speak to it in great detail because it's really new for me. What self-worth is. It's like the artichoke. You know, you have to pull back the layers to get to heart of things. And I have lots of artichokes in my garden, right? I have this artichoke. I need friendships, family, myself, my job, the people that work for me, all these different things. And so I had to go to, and there was no rhythm to this. I literally was just like, whatever intuitively came up for me was what I worked on. And sometimes it was not a choice. Sometimes it was just right in my face and I had to deal with what emotions came up. And the one thing I did have, and this is where the blue collar female comes in, and there's a lot of aspects to that, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it right today, maybe another time, but one of the things about the blue collar female that that is an element to me is that I realized that I was very lucky that it seems no matter what the universe had to offer me, what the world was throwing at me, what ups and downs I had, I always had the ability to take care of my mental health. I always had either the financial wherewithal to do it, or I had the support of family and friends. I had the courage in myself. It takes a village. And I realized that when I turned 50, now what am I going to do? My baby just graduated from high school. They're going off to college, which they were going to local colleges. And the long story short of that is that my husband and I weren't living together for 12 years. I used to bounce around a bunch of different houses. We used to have vacation homes and all this stuff. And well, here goes 53. I just forgot where I was going on that one. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Anyways, so going back to the artichoke theory and pulling back this, one of the things I had to do was forgive my mom. That was a big element in my thing. And part of that when I turned 50 was, what do I want to do when I grow up? When I get to that point where I find happiness and how can I simplify my life so I can even give back to other people? So that's what I did with Blue Collar Female. I'm going in circles here, but that's what Blue Collar Female was for me. It was a way to create a platform that not only can I take my business skill and provide a business opportunity for people, which I have done, but also a platform of giving a place for other women to come together and feel like they're being supported in anything. I primarily focus on women, or not primarily focus, but my business model tends to work towards women who work from home and who have family at home, kids, because that's, I think, I don't think people give enough credit to women and moms who work from home that are working 98 hours a week, which has been proven, just to be a stay-at-home, just to be a mom. And then you got to add her extra 20 to 30 hours a week that she's trying to juggle bringing a supplemental income. So I started Blue Collar Female for several reasons. One, to bring benefits to those women who work from home. I also call Blue Collar Female a place for other females who work hard on themselves, on their lives, on everything, to come together and get support. And I also have Blue Collar Female as a, I have Blue Collar Females conversation over coffee. And it's a Friday morning get together where we just talk about current events. It's kind of like The View. Come on in. You know how when you go and you get into you start to watch these shows, you go, I want to talk. I can't do podcasts because every time I get on a podcast, I want to talk. I want to get in the middle. Well, you get to talk in my platform and we talk about whatever comes up. But ultimately, Blue Collar Female is a magnitude of different things, but it's all centered around providing support and care and giving women a place to have a voice, to feel supported in their journey, to come and not feel alone when they're feeling alone, because not everybody has the resources that I had. And I can't explain how I got them. I just had them. And that goes back to the intention thing that I started out saying, is that I set my intentions. I did. I really have been very clear about, I got to find happiness. So I spent the 25 years just doing my mom job, right? Just doing what I had to do. And I knew when my baby graduated, it was my time, and I couldn't get out of that situation fast enough. I have to be honest with you. I was ready. I was ready to send my kids off to college. And I've spent the last 3 years in a new home. That was part of the big change. My ex-husband and I, or my husband and I, did not live together. So I used to say, we have a 4,500 square foot house with a 2-mile hallway. because I would literally, with my kids, they had split schedules with their dad. So they would be Mondays and Tuesdays with me, Wednesdays and Thursdays with their dad, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on the weekend. So it was the 2-2-5 method. I think many would know what that is. And so every 2 days I was switching homes. I was not living this. So one of the big things I wanted to do when my kids graduated was dump the big house that my husband currently says that was, I must have been grateful to have met him for. And then, and I needed to simplify my life, and I was going to go on another crossroads. At the time, my husband and I weren't married. We were just boyfriend, girlfriend with a 45 square foot house with a 2-mile highway or a hallway. And so I said, listen, this is where I'm at. My kids are done. I've spent the last 25 years busting my ass. Again, the blue collar theory. We all work very hard. We're all blue collar women. It's about getting in there and getting shit done. And excuse my French if anybody's on there. I can't explain to you. And I just know how hard we work. Here he comes. So I know how hard, sorry guys, that's what I thought was going to happen. So we work our butts off, right? And so I was ready for a change. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. My kids they were squatters, teenagers, they squat. And
They were squatters.
oh God, I only saw them when they needed something, and I appreciate that my kids had their independence and all that. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I'm burnt out on this whole thing. I don't want to work this hard anymore. We just had gone through the Great Recession. Having a construction company, we live in California, having a construction company, I never, in the recession, any business, and having a bookkeeping firm. I had a book, where I was with 20 or 30 or 40 clients that were all suffering together. And I was exhausted. So when I was turning 50 and my baby was graduating high school, I gave my husband, not an ultimatum because I don't believe him. I pretty much said, this is what I'm doing. Either you're in or you're out. And he jumped in. Yeah, not always do they want to go in, willingly. So, and we bought this house that I live on, and we condensed all of our overheads, sold everything that was separate, and basically brought it all in together. And I've spent the last 3 years building my brand so I can help other people and pay it forward. I have, again, a huge business model. Whether I get to it will be day by day because it's a lot of work by myself. But again, I'm used to working hard. But at 50, I said, okay, my mother passed away at 50 and I need to find a way to forgive her by the time I'm 50. And she's been gone. So if I'm 53, she's 19 years old and she's been gone for 21 years. So, or 24 years. How am I doing my math? 24 years. Holy cow. Okay. So, anyways, she, I don't have my calculator. I think I did that wrong. Anyways, I need my techie, but it doesn't matter. So the long story short is that she, I had to find forgiveness. And so I went in and that was one of the artichokes that I pulled apart was I wanted to figure out how to forgive my mom. And one of the takeaways I had with that was my mother was just another woman. She truly had a hard life. She wasn't emotionally well and it affected her mentally. And she had me at 19. And I had to go back and look at all of her baby pictures that I have. And I had to kind of put together this puzzle. Like, what was my mom's life like? Because something just intuitively didn't feel right. And I kept asking family members my whole adult life, what is wrong with her? And the way when she passed away, I asked a family member, what the hell? Right. And they're like, oh, when she was 16, she just never grew up. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but all right, I'll follow your lead. But then I couldn't sit with that. And I needed to find forgiveness to be able to go on to the next act of my life. So I was able to really discover that part, and it's been very healing. I was able to look at my mom as being another woman and not my mom. And my expectations changed for her. And so I found forgiveness in that because I could look at her from woman to woman and say, I'm actually really heartbroken that she had such a hard life instead of being angry at her for giving me such a hard one. And then I had to forgive my father. Now there's a twist to that. I went through this process of Okay, so backing up a little bit, my father left when I was 4. And by the time I was 5, at the age of 5, I was involved. I got a serious head injury, neck injury from playing outside. And again, we're resilient. Kids are resilient. So between 4 and 5, I had some serious traumas. And none of them were really looked at. They took me to the doctors. Doctors say, go home, have some soup and sleep and don't sleep too much, but watch TV. You know how they treat concussions. And that's how it was taken care of in those days. My neck has been a chronic problem where they wanted to do surgery when I was a kid and all these different things. And I just never really knew what was going on fully. And then when I had to look at my father, there wasn't much to go off of. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, and I apologize. I'm not a storyteller. Okay. So I don't have this all written out, but I will tell you this: when my son died and we did the whole thing with the meadow and him walking through, it was a clear indication I needed to go find him. I needed to connect with him. And so ironically enough, again, another reason to forgive at the time I couldn't forgive her, but now I do. But I had to call my mom. I'm like, I think I need to get a hold of my dad. And nobody's seen him. At this point, I'm 22 years. It was 26 years old. And I said, I think I need to find my dad. And she's like, well, the last thing I knew, and I literally called 2 lines. The first one was, his name was Witherspoon. So it's a family name. So it's not very common. It was his middle name. And so I called and I said, is this Robert Alexander? Might be answering, seeing this on video. And they said, oh no, not him. The second person I called, I said, I'm looking for Robert Alexander. And they said, okay. You found him. I said, Witherspoon, middle name. I think you found him. And this is his house. And I said, I think I'm his daughter. I think I'm his daughter. And this woman says, oh my God, I've heard all about you. And I get goosebumps when I think about that, because at that time, it really lifted for me. Now this is 26 years old, 22 years in the making. I got my very first hit that I am worthy. It wasn't that he didn't love me, and so what was interesting is my dad, this was a woman he had been dating too. This is what's even kookier. He'd only been dating her and she knew about me. So that just seems so like, oh my God, really? So we met down in Southern California, where I was born and raised till I was 10. And he drove out from Tennessee to come see me. And we met at my grandparents' house in Southern California. And we had no connection. All the connection I had was at 4 years old. That was the stop. My grandfather was talking about rubbing my belly all the time because I had gas. That was the conversation that we were having when we were connecting. So that relationship didn't flourish, but there was still this interest. And this is the really interesting part of the story. So what happened was I ended up finding my sister and brother through my dad on MySpace when MySpace was around. And so I became friends with them, but we never talked, right? It was just that whole social media interaction and very little of that. And 20 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, we become friends on Facebook. We're friends, and we've been staying friends. We've been talking to each other through here. And I finally get to that place, like I said, at 50, that I'm going to figure out, this is it. I've learned to forgive my mom. I'm learning that I'm not the reason all things happen. The ego thing kind of goes away, all that stuff, but I'm still not healed because my father, it's not there. So I have a half sister by my mom's side, and she doesn't know her father. So she decided that she was going to look for him for health purposes. And she decides to take the ancestry.com thing. And then she says, can you, and one of my uncles, my mom's brother, and your dad's genes, so I can figure out which ones are mine? Sure. My sister gets her results back, and she's like, you know what? I don't think mom is grandpa's daughter. And I'm like, what? And she says, yeah. She goes, there is no surname of mom's surname anywhere in my bloodline. So I'm curious to see when you and Uncle Keith get your test back to find out what they say. And I said, sure. So we had a few more weeks to wait. So finally my sister calls me. She goes, Uncle Keith got his in. And I said, oh yeah. And she goes, I'm right. Grandpa Ralph's not mom's dad. 71-year secret. Nobody knew. Like, what? Makes all the sense in the world why my mom had emotional issues, right? Then my test results come in, and my sister says, are you sitting down? I said, sure. She says, open up your account, and I want you to notice somebody at the very top above my name. And I said, sure. She goes, that's another half sister. I said, what? She goes, yeah, you have another half sister. So instantly, I reached out to her on Ancestry. Plus, I found her on Facebook. Be careful, everybody, on Facebook. And I private messaged her. It ended up, I guess, because I just figured this out, that you can call people from Facebook. So she calls me. And she's putting all these things together about where she's from. And she swears her last name is her last name. And all, she's arguing with me. But she also says she's the black sheep of the family. She disowned her family. She gave me this big story. And I was like, oh, God, scary, right? So, like, what did I just don't have it anywhere, do I? It's all coming at me from places that are dysfunctional. I don't know. So what chances do I have, right? So I ended up, my sister started doing some more research. In the meantime, I messaged my sister. Again, the sister that I'm half sister with, that's my dad's daughter. And they're sending me family photos, but we've never talked on the phone. A couple of DM messages, that's it. So I'm sending her messages and I'm saying, hey, Dad might have another daughter. She's all, what? And I said, yeah, you might want to check with Dad and see what's going on. I gave her the story. And she wasn't quite catching on. And she finally comes back to me. She goes, well, I talked to Dad. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, he said that he couldn't have been that person's father because he was a virgin when he met your mother. And he knew there was a chance you weren't his. Yeah. 51 years. Actually, I'm 53, 52 years. And -4, so 48 years of my life, I grieved the loss of my father. And I was angry. How can a man leave? One of my main attractions to my husband was he was never wanting to be a father, and he became a young father at the age of 20, and he stood by his kid, and he did the best he could, even though it wasn't his forte, like he did never sign up for that. And it was in my attraction. And so, men leave. That man didn't leave. And now I realize the man that left wasn't even my dad. And my sister's like, my half sisters, it's confusing. I have half sisters. I have half sisters. I have sisters I thought were half sisters that are now stepsisters, and it's just crazy. But the answer to that is that my sister believes she's found my biological father and he's passed, and we're not going to disturb the family on that because we just don't feel the need to do it. I don't. She'll do whatever I ask because she's my sister and she loves me, but I'm not willing to disrupt somebody else's life for something that's not going to make a difference for me long term. What was really the answer was I discovered at the end of the day that men don't leave necessarily. He left. He had no choice. He was divorcing my mom because it was hard for me to live with her. I didn't live with her most of my life, but he had not a leg to stand on. And everybody kept telling me that when I was growing up. They kept saying to me, but back in the 60s or 70s, Christine, you didn't, men didn't get rights. They didn't have children rights. They didn't get to be the fathers. And I'm like, oh, that's horseshit. He still could have sent a birthday card. I mean, there's no reason for somebody, because I remember the bond. I really do remember the feeling of what it was like to be around my dad. And so, but now what I realized after discovering all this, he stood by my side. He put his name on my birth certificate. He knew from day one that I might not have been his. He loved me despite not being his child. And Is it okay that he left? Well, no, it's not okay that people don't own up to their responsibilities. I don't agree with that. But I could forgive him for why he left. It's not, he didn't have a leg to stand on, and he knew it, and nobody told me. So where I'm at today in this journey is that I've come full circle with forgiveness in the two areas of my life that were holding me back. And now in two of the three areas. The third one is forgiving myself. And that's the journey I'm on right now. I've had to let go of relationships that have been in my life for 20 years, 42 years. Because I realized that the relationships were established on my unhealthy attachment. And those friendships, as much as I love the women that were in my life, it was unhealthy. Like, I just saw it. I woke up one day and realized my own value. I literally I went on a weekend getaway with these two girlfriends, and I woke up and I just saw all of a sudden how I was being treated. And they didn't even know they were treating me that way. I just had this, like, having forgiven my father, discovering my forgiveness for my mom, and learning to forgive myself, all these epiphanies and awarenesses are happening to me right now. And I started realizing that that I was allowing people to treat me the way they were treating me. It wasn't their fault. They were doing their own survival mechanisms to survive. I mean, how many times, not literally have I been thrown in front of the bus, but I'm a strong personality. So people use me as a shield, and I would just throw myself underneath the bus for them. And I started seeing how that was how my relationships were evolving. So, today, if I'm going in the right categories of how we're spending this, and I don't even know how much time we have, but today what I'm discovering is in my self-love, in my self-acceptance and authenticity, there's loneliness, and I'm establishing new friendships. But no matter what happens, no matter who loved me, who left me, who used me as a shield, whatever the reasons were, at the end of the day, all I have is myself. And that's where I'm at today. I work very hard at understanding trauma. Something that happened to me in the course of all this, I was diagnosed with chronic illnesses. And that's a story in itself, but long story short is that I basically burnt my body out. And what I'd like to have people understand through my story is the importance of self-care and understanding your traumas and how they affect you. My body has been living in trauma mode since I was 4 and 5 years old. Like, literally, it doesn't know how. I think I'm relaxed, right? And my body is in flight or fight mode all the time. So what happened was, after all the stress of the recession and trying to keep our businesses alive and helping my clients keep their businesses alive, getting in the grind with them, I was involved in a car accident. And the car saved my life. I'm forever grateful that I was driving a car that had all the safety features. And I walked away. I walked away with a back injury. But at the end of the day, the firefighter was cleaning the road and said, "I am really surprised I'm talking to you. I would expect to be taking you to the morgue right now." My car I had a Denali, a GMC Denali Yukon, and it was completely totaled, twisted, everything. A guy ran a red light and hit me. And it sent my body into this tizzy, like, I can't take anymore. I'm done. And all the symptoms that I was having from a few years prior kind of like went into high action. So I started doing that was part of the 50 thing too, guys. Like, when I turned 50, it was about the same time I found out I had this chronic illness to the level I did. And I said, oh, wait a minute. All I got is me. I know that, right? And we got to figure out how to make her happy. And we got to figure out how to get her well. Because what I discovered going back into the codependent thing is, at the end of the day, nobody's there for you but yourself. And I don't mean that to be like you can't rely on others, but really when the chips fall, it's you that has to pick them up. When my son died, I didn't get that. I got a vision of it. I got a portion of it. I knew that grief that I was feeling was not going to go away because somebody magically took it. I had to go through this 28-year process to I accepted my son's death about 5 years after he died, and that's a whole nother story. But it was the remainder of these years to recover the childhood so I could find out who I am. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am. Oh yeah, I like that. Oh, I like that because not because you like it. I mean, seriously, like I would look at things and go, well, if they like that, then maybe I will. And I would try something and then I would do what they're doing and I'd follow this. And what I'm walking away with in this third act is, what do I want? What do I need to do to make sure that I am the best version of myself for me? No, not for anyone else. Now, granted, I could be doing this for my kids, which there have been times in my depressions that they were what pulled me through. But at the end of the day, getting to know who I am and what I like and living my authentic life, that's the next act. And I want to encourage other women, one, to not get to the point that I did. So that's one of the reasons I mentor a lot of young women that have children at home, because we can burn our candles both in, not take care of ourselves. And I want women to know that they don't have to do that. You know, we don't have to work that hard to make everybody like us and to do everything we're expected to do, because at the end of the day, if we don't, you could be at my age and you could have a complete, and it's on the rise. By the way, the chronic illnesses I had were Hashimoto's, adrenal fatigue, leaky gut syndrome. I had cortisol. All my cortisol was burnt out. I mean, I lost all my 5 major hormones were completely depleted. And they put me on a bunch of crap to lick and wipe and swipe and swallow. And I'm happy to report, you know, I'm literally not kidding you, Ashley. It was, you know, I don't even want to get in a soapbox about that, but what got me to go in the first place was I read that book by Suzanne Summers called I'm Too Young for This. And it talks about perimenopause. I thought, well, maybe I'm perimenopausal. I don't know, you know, and I read the book and then I started doing some testing that this company called My Life, which she's a big proponent for and she sells. I went with them and I got some blood work done and they treated my blood work differently than any other doctor. And they looked at things in ways that they were able to identify that, no, the regular MDs are saying, regular MDs are saying, oh, you're fine. You're within the parameters of a woman your age. But in reality, which new medicine's getting smarter about this, I wasn't all right. I was on the very low, if not depleted on a lot of these things they said I was in a good range with. So I went to this doctor who's a bioidentical person and she gave me estrogen and progesterone and gave me a thyroid pill for the Hashimoto's and said, go on with your life and keep doing this. Oh, and by the way, eat 6 square meals a day so you can take these damn pills that were costing me $200 or $300 a month. You know, I mean, it was just this gamma of problems. And I finally just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not even feeling better. I wasn't feeling better. I was looking and swiping. In the meantime, I had been backing up on a antidepressant since I was 42. So I was on it for 10 years plus. And they gave that to me because they thought that maybe I was depressed when in fact it was the onset of the Hashimoto's and nobody recognized it. So I'm happy to say that I went to a holistic person. I live in Northern California in the wine country. I live in a community called Sebastopol, California, which is known for its wealth and health community. I mean, we're environmental. People always say, oh, you're going to wear tie-dye because I moved here. You know, I'm like, maybe, you know, it's a very health-minded community. I started going to a muscle tester. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's where they test your muscle and they put these bottles. It's total like Eastern medicine, but I swear by it. And what she discovered in my process was, one, the medications they were giving were making me toxic. So I needed to stop them. 2, and I don't recommend anybody to do any of the things I'm talking about unless they get professional advice, but I'm just telling you what worked for me. And she discovered that the underlying problems were I had mercury poisoning in my teeth. So this is something I want to share with people. I'm hoping people will pay attention to their health, because you don't understand you're not feeling well. I thought I was having menopause. And I kept telling my husband, I'm like, if this is menopause, how in the hell do women do this? Because I was foggy. I was lethargic. My friends, this is again, those friends are not my friends anymore, would say things to me like, we're not going to invite you anymore if you keep not coming. Well, I have all the intentions of coming, but I can't help that have no energy. I was falling asleep. I went on a vacation with my husband. We're on a tour bus seeing something in New Orleans, and I fell asleep. I didn't have control over that. So what they discovered was I had mercury poisoning, because back when I was little, they put in the mercury fillings. So I had to have all of those extracted. I did take a protocol of minerals and such that were really they're SC process, standard processing or something like that. They're all mineral based, and everything's is holistic. And so I had to take those. I didn't even tell her I had a surgery in my right shoulder. She picked up on a staph infection in my right shoulder. She said the leaky gut, she said that the antidepressants they gave me were causing me to feel sick and causing toxins to build in our body. Now, ladies, just so you know, and I've done research on this. You can look at Medical Medium. He's a perfect guy for that. That's what actually one of the reasons I got started on my journey of getting healed in my physical self, is that, as we get older, there's so much toxins in our environment that our body has no place to store them, because our liver and everything is just at capacity. And, we're living this long, and our bodies are taking in our environment. Plus, we haven't done a great job of taking care of ourselves, because we're just eating whatever we want to put in our mouth and whatever. So I had to alleviate a lot of foods from my diet, that gluten, corn, things like that, things that would agitate the leaky gut. And I'm happy to report I'm not 100% healed. I think I have to babysit my stomach, and I still have to heal it. But all the symptoms went away within the first week of getting home. That happened. I don't even know where to go with that and segue into something else. But at the end of the day, it all has come to where I am, and that is trying to share my story and making awareness of everything that I possibly have gone through, that other people might say, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, maybe I should check into that, because it takes a village. And I firmly believe that. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to ask questions or if you want to have me keep going. I don't know how to do this, guys. I apologize. I just thought I saw Ashley's request. And again, I just want to share my story, because there's so many interesting facets to it. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to, you got to know who you are, and you got to learn to take care of yourself, and you got to set boundaries, and you got to know when to let go of toxic things in your life. And that includes long-term relationships that don't work any longer. You can love them from a distance, but they can't be in your inner circle if they're not the right support for you. And people should come to you. You should never give more than you get, because at the end of the day, that's called codependency. And I don't think people realize we're all codependent, especially women, because we were taught to take care of everybody. Oh, you're the nurturer, the matriarch, blah, 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 and we stop. I have to say something I think is really interesting. The 71-year secret is a 4-generation dysfunction. I discovered that we knew my grandmother didn't know her father. She knew who he was, but I've discovered that my great grandmother very well doesn't know who her father was. There's a dysfunction there too. So that's something I think is pretty cool, that I hopefully have stopped. Oh, I know I stopped. I know my kid's father is. That's not an issue. But what I hope I stopped is another generation of lack of self-care and self-worth. And I hope I immolated to my children through my example that you persevere. When I went through my divorce and my kids were little and they saw ugly, my ex-husband was very protective of them. And I said, I get that we want to protect our children, but I also want my children to see me come back. And when you have a bad day, you have a bad moment, it's how you handle it that makes a difference. And I've always shown to my children that you rise above. You might hit bottom so hard that you wonder if you're going to get yourself out, but you find a way to pull yourself back up, and you find a way to get back on the horse that bucked you off, and you persevere. And I hope I'm an example of that, not just to my children, but to other women who are interested in getting to know me.
And I'll let you finish here in a minute.
No, I'm done. Hey, you said I could keep talking, honey. That's a trouble. That
is perfect. Like, for me, that's what this platform's for. Like, it really is. I mean, it's not me. I mean, I only ask questions if there's a stop, and I feel like, and you really provided so much. Like, I don't feel that I needed to ask any questions, but I before, and we've got about 8 minutes. First and foremost, Angel says, yay.
that I know, right? Sorry, Angela. We didn't miss you.
It's my fault, you guys. Jennifer says, hey.
Hi, Jennifer.
You guys, I'm working out the kinks in the new streaming platform, so you guys just bear with me. It says, thank you for sharing. There was a lot of wonderful information and helpful. And really, that's what the premise of this show is I always said from the beginning with this show, and going back to even why I started everything that I started and where TUF Woman came from, because my company is the Unfuckwithable Woman, and it's all about creating that mindset of being able.
I love it.
If you look, it's not technically a word.
I know.
It's in the Urban Dictionary, so it counts. But to be unfuckwithable is really sovereignty over self. So being grounded in who you are, and knowing who you are, and knowing who you are outside of what the world tells you are. So my thing with the show and the podcast was like, if I can get on here and use my platform to help at least like one woman, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Whether that's me bringing on somebody that provides that aha moment, like this show, like for me, because when I started the show, I had a few people go, why are you going to bring on other women onto your platform, especially women who are in similar or same niches as you? And I'm like, listen, there are millions upon billions of women in this world, and I can't help everybody. And I said, but if I bring on somebody and a woman sees her and her story pivots something in that woman, and that woman shifts her life, I said, then I'm doing my job.
Absolutely.
So you touched so beautifully on that, and I love that you talk about that. That, you know, that's a lot of reason why you did. Oh, she went out, you guys. Oh no, I hope it's not Eddie. Hey, you guys, if you hear me, say hey. I don't know what happened. Oh no. All right, you guys. I don't know where Christine went. I don't know. Maybe she'll pop back on. But all right, if you're still on here with me, say hey. You guys, I want to touch a moment on what Christine talked about, and that is really understanding that everything starts within. All right, good. So, and she talked a lot about peeling back the layers and the artichokes, and she had so many wonderful like euphemisms. It's great. And hopefully she comes back. I won't. Okay, I was like, oh, she disappeared. She went goodbye. It's okay. I was just thinking.
What happened on my show, right?
Huh?
Okay. Oh, there you are. I can hear you. Good thing I was just cussing.
It's all right. I was going to say, though, the thing that I like that you touched on while we've got a few minutes was that you touched on how everything starts within. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with my company and with my business is I wanted to bring women back to radical self-awareness. And somebody went, what the hell is radical self-awareness? And I said, again, it's coming back to that understanding that everything that happens in your life, and I'm not saying all circumstances, I mean, bad things happen in life, and there's, you know, like life happens, you guys. I'm not saying that everything you bring upon yourself, but it's recognizing that we walk through life, like you said, with generations of dysfunction that's not ours. And by being able to come to a space of radical self-awareness, we begin to recognize what is ours and what is not. And for me, I think the thing that I love that you really vocalized so well was how you really had to get to the bottom of who you were to really live your life, right? We live our life so often, especially as women, for other people. First, it's, you know, our parents, and we want to please everybody. When you want to make everybody the good schoolgirl, ideal. And then we get out into the world and we want to be the perfect wife for the perfect husband. And then we want to be the good mom. And then, then we want to be the good grandmother. And then you get to this point, and I see a lot of older women, you get to this point and it's like, well, what do I do now? What do I do with my life now? Like, I don't know who I am. I don't even, and I am thankful that very early on, 26 actually, after a string of really shitty relationships, a bad abusive marriage, and 2 kids and being a single mom, I was like, this just doesn't work. This can't be it. Mm-hmm. I said, this is not what happiness is to me. And again, the other thing you touched on is like, I wanted to find happiness. I didn't know what that looked like to me, but I knew that was what I wanted to find. And I think what resonates with me is that actually, because when I started my own journey, that was what I said. I said, listen, this is not happiness. And I don't know what happiness looks like to me, because I come from a really like non-traditional family setting. I said, but this isn't it. And that's it. Like, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy, because I know if I'm a happy person, then that's going to correlate over to me being a happy mom. That's going to be correlate over to me being a happy partner. And just because at the end of the day, it's going to start with me having to be happy and be whole within myself. So I am really grateful for like everything that you gave. I mean, and you had so many twists and turns.
Oh man, I can write a book. And I've actually talked about doing, I've been working with a friend of mine down in Southern California, and it just keeps getting put on hold for all the reasons that life gives us. But I want to do a dramedy about being a blue collar female, like literally how hard women, excuse my French, and the unfuckable women, how fucking hard we work to make sure everybody else is taken care of and we don't take care of ourselves.
And we find it, we are guilty. Do you know how many women I feel like going to a private event, I feel really guilty for being here. Why? You earn that.
You know what one kills me? Every time I go to a grocery store, I tell people this. Don't tell me you're sorry. You're not sorry. Why are you sorry? There's nothing to be sorry about. The aisles are skinny. All right. It ain't your fault. Don't go by me and say, oh, I'm sorry. Own that shit. It's the store's fault that we have to go around each other and say, excuse me. So we just are given the wrong message. And, I am going to just tell you guys something, and I'll get done with my conversation, but I think this is really important. When you touched on the fact that you feel that finding happiness, listen, guys, I cannot say this enough. I had no idea what happiness was. I chased everything. I want the White House picket fence because everybody else's families who have that seem so happy. They got cars in the driveway. They got parents who pick them up and take them to school. I'm on a bus and I barely know what house I'm going to live in because whatever family member could take me was where I moved. I mean, literally, people don't understand. We all have a history. We all have been traumatized in one way or another. It's how we come out of it at the end of the day. But listen, I love all my friends, even the ones who hate me. Okay. I don't have ill feelings. I never had any intentions of hurting anyone in my life. It all came from pain. I was in pain, therefore I inflicted pain. But it wasn't because I consciously went out of my way to hurt someone. And one of the things I discovered when in this, and like I said, I really feel this is a happiness because I remember talking to my coach and I said to him, I called him, I couldn't stop crying because I had found what I felt was happiness. And that was, I said no. And not no, like, oh, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to take care of me because this isn't where I want to be. And I literally, I'm not exaggerating, guys. I was at this 3-day weekend with what I call gold. You go through life with friends and some don't hang around, some do. And I look at it as like panning for gold. When you pan through the gold, you have a few flecks left. Right? That's what's in the bottom of the pan. And that's how I called these friends. And what I realized when I observed the situation and paid attention to how I was feeling in the situation, and then started looking at how I was being disregarded or not, I felt out of place. I thought, wait a minute, is this me or is this them? Is this me being insecure or is this them? And I kept doing that. And finally, at one point I was 4 hours away from home, and I literally got in my car and said, I can't, I was afraid to leave, because if I leave, how would that look? How would that make them more angry at me? They will really reject me if I leave now. But I had this thing. It's about me, and I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling secure. I love these ladies, but I'm out. And I paid Uber or Lyft to come pick me up and drive me 45 minutes, cost me $123 to get a rental car at the airport. That was the locals rental car place. And I drove 4 hours home at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I never looked back. I sent a message to the friends and said, I love you. I'm here, but we're just too different now. One friend doesn't talk to me. The other friend still talks to me, but the relationship is what it should be, which is we love each other like sisters, but we don't fit. We're on different waves. And I'm not going to force myself into somebody's life to try to belong. That's part of the value. And so ending that's happiness, guys. It really is knowing your value and being able to say, no matter what happens, I got me. I got me. And that is happiness. You can pursue a house, a dog, kids, new cars, that big fancy career, but yet none of that means nothing if you don't have who you are, and you don't know your own value, and you don't know how to let people know that you're not going to let them treat you less than you deserve. And again, people don't realize they're treating you badly because they're in their own survival mode. And you have to back out and say, wait a minute, I ain't working. So yeah, I see the time is up, and I want to respect that. So I appreciate you, Ashley, for bringing me on here. I hope I did some service, because that's all this was, is, just trying to get people to have some tools.
And just as I love my dog. That is happiness. That is happiness. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we have to see my little man.
Okay, so if you connect with anyone, I hope you connect with Angela. So she has 2 dogs, and it's hilarious because one is this pit, this big, huge pit. And the other is this little tiny chihuahua. I mean, little tiny thing. And every time you look at her pictures, the chihuahua is sitting on top of the pit bull, and the pit bull is there like, all right, let's,
That's cute.
Oh my God, it's the cutest thing I've ever seen. But thank you so much. Like, this was, she said your dog's beautiful.
Thank you.
This was really great. And I think before we get off here, and I'm going to have you say one more thing, and that's just how we're connected. But before we get off here, I think this was a very timely message, because we are all this stuff's going on, right? And we're literally being stripped of everything we think brings us happiness. And I'm not saying that in regards to your job being gone. I get it. Like, I'm not saying that, but all the
security is different than happiness.
All the material things that we think make us happy, all the shit that we think that we have to have. You guys, I used to have a really nice car. I have a 1998 Honda CRV stick shift, and it's paid off. And you know how happy that makes me? I love that damn thing. Like, it sounds like a friggin' roaring dragon, but it's okay. It's paid off, and I love it. You know why I love it? Because I don't have a fucking car payment.
All right, so we're gonna go there. I literally ordered a car. I've been since my car accident in 2012. I haven't had a car that I've loved since. I've just been buying cars because I need cars, right? And I finally said, I'm done buying cars, trying to figure out what I want. And I went back to my 1996 Toyota 4Runner that's got almost 200,000 miles on it, and I've been driving that for 2 years. And I ordered a car, and I won't even discuss it right now because it's not even that's the issue. I ordered it, and I'm prepared to say goodbye to it because we are now in crises, and I'm not willing to financially put myself in a burden for a material item, because that's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is that I have simplicity in my life, and I can focus on my well-being.
Yep.
So,
all right. So tell everybody about where they can connect with you. I'm gonna connect you. I'm gonna tag you in this post but if you guys go back on my profile, she is also tagged in those posts as well. So for anybody on YouTube, which we had, I'm gonna see if it'll let me go back up. Oh my God, where did it go? Oh, maybe not.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll just jump in because it's late on the East Coast right now. It's after it was almost 8:30 where you guys are at. So I'm blue collar female. I have a page, so I have actually 2 pages attached to my Facebook profile. One is Alexander Bookkeeping, which is a bookkeeping firm or boutique that I am actually mentoring a woman who stays home, and I'm teaching other women how to be bookkeepers and working from home. That's the model of that company. And then I have Blue Collar Female, which is what you're going to see when you get on there is literally just a lot of positive posts or reality check posts because I get a little pissed off. And I try to keep that out. But, you know, sometimes you got to have a platform to have your voice, you know. So and not everybody agrees. And I try not to talk politics. I really don't. But sometimes I get a little pissed. Yeah, so you're more than welcome to follow me, and we have a conversations over coffee, like I said, on Friday mornings. All the information's there. We have a regular post that we put in to remind people. And again, it's no formal format. It's very similar to yours, Ashley. We just get on. Actually, the women get on with us, so we get to see all kinds of different platforms of people's faces, you know, people's faces on the platform, and we all talk and we laugh. And it can be rated X. Well, I should say R. So it is a bunch of adult women having fun, and sometimes it's about heavy conversations. Right now, I'm trying not to go there because that's the last thing we want to do. We see it on the news and we see it in our own personal lives every day. So we're trying to find positive ways to talk on Fridays.
Awesome.
Okay.
Jonathan said good stuff, and that was on YouTube. You know, that's the first YouTube comment I've gotten like in a while. So I don't know what that is, but awesome. Okay. All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate being on your platform, and I wish you the best. And I will be seeing you on Facebook, and maybe we can connect again another time.
Yes, we will. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Y'all have a great night.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.